think it's really easy for us to underestimate the degree and depth of fear that most people live in. The Course actually says that in one way or another. I think it mentions the frenzied effects of fear that, like I said, we don't consciously embrace necessarily. When the Course talks about fear, it's not talking about the times when you are afraid because of some obvious physical danger. Well, I mean, it's talking about that, but not only that, maybe that doesn't happen too often. But what it is saying is that fear is present all the time, like air is around here, and you're just breathing it in. And if you don't consciously decide to choose differently, you will just breathe it in, because the air of fear is everywhere in our three-dimensional experience here. And since everyone is not quivering with fear, we think, no one has fear. But I think that's not, again, not true. Whoever, most of the people, a great majority of the people on the face of the planet are enmeshed in fear. And you say, well, how does that come out, this fear? Well, the fears might be that they are not worthy and they will not be taken care of, unless something unusual happens. Maybe they need to go rob a bank to make sure, or maybe they need to steal from someone to make sure. Maybe they just need to work real hard and they just have 3 jobs. I don't know. It can come out in all kinds of things. But the fear is connected with guilt. The reason you're afraid you won't be taken care of is because you're not worth being taken care of. That's the guilt, saying my value, I don't have any value. God doesn't take care of me. It's clear, because God doesn't take care of me. I quit my job just to find out whether or not He would take care of me, and He didn't. I couldn't find anything to eat. Nobody would give me money. Not everybody's like Matt. Matt, who receives money every time he walks in the grocery store. So the fear manifests in different ways. And I think the Course also would say that's just darkness, because it comes from untruth, you see. Every once in a while you'll find yourself in the presence of people who just don't like other people very much. They manifest in different ways. They may be prejudiced and dislike a whole group of people. I heard someone in my company say not too long ago, well, I just hate all Mexicans. And I wanted to say, you don't know all Mexicans. Tell me how you've met. There are probably 50 million of them. I don't know how many, what the numbers are. There's no way you've met them. What do you mean you don't like them? If you hadn't met me, would that mean you didn't like me either because you hadn't met me? Or is that the only criteria? And so I thought, well, such people must regard it as a boon, a benefit to be prejudiced. It's like another star on their crown because they're prejudiced, or even if you just don't like your neighbor. The point is, I think, that as we encounter all different kinds of people, we don't have to like everybody we meet. We're asked to love them. Forget the like. Like usually depends on personality, shared traits, and all this. And like if you're looking at a different culture, well, they have a different culture. You may not feel comfortable there. They may not feel comfortable in your culture. That's irrelevant. I mean, you can handle that however you wish, but if you don't like Mexican music, don't listen to it, for example. But, and I wanted to say to that person, I'm so glad we have Mexicans at the border. They are hardworking people. They're family-oriented. They're religious-oriented. What do you want, Mongols at your border, or a horde of, I don't know, warlike people? But for some people, and you ask, well, why do people have this, why do they think they're better because they can dislike a great group instead of just an individual? How does that improve you, you know? Well, I think it all has to do with fear. I'm not quite sure how that traces in. But people will sometimes fear that which is different. You can choose to be a friend to that which is different and appreciate differences just as easily. It's a choice. And I'm struck by the incredible unwillingness, and I'm going to say some people, but let's just say of all humanity because it's a general characteristic, to change away from an attitude that they picked up in childhood, say. You know, you pick up a certain attitude growing up. And some people are, even though the attitude is utter nonsense, you might say, you don't know Mexicans. And if you did, you would probably like, no, you are asked to love them. I don't really care whether you like them, that is a detail. And say, well, what do you mean by love them? That means recognize their value. Their value is equal to yours. No more, no less. Created by the same Creator. To not love one is almost to insult the Creator, except he can't be insulted. He just knows that you're going to be unhappy if that's the path you follow. But we're asked to love people. We're not asked to be similar to all people. That doesn't mean anything anyway. That has to do with the form, not the content. Liking has to do with the form. You say, do you like the kind of music I like? Oh, well, I like you. You don't like the kind of music I like? Well, I don't like you too much. That's form. And we don't have to go into not liking, because that sounds negative to me. But you will tend to associate with people that like and want to do the same things you do. When Milford wants to play handball, he doesn't say, everybody that dislikes handball, please hold up their hands, and then try to get them to play handball with him. He just finds people that like to play handball. But that's the detail. That's form. It doesn't really mean much of anything. The content is what is important. And we know that the Course tells us that the Holy Spirit always emphasizes content. Love is content. It means you see other people's value. They have no more or less value than you. And so you treat them as if they were you. As we read every morning, recognize your brother by seeing him as yourself. That's not quite the way it said that, but it's essentially the same thing. But I am struck by people's unwillingness to change. They don't. And if you try to make them change, that simply makes them less willing, That's a kind of a mysterious quality that the Course brings to our attention, and that is our willingness, or our lack of willingness, our unwillingness. How do you change that? How do you make someone willing to love everybody instead of to not love everybody? Well, you can't make somebody willing. I don't. Well, the first thing that comes to our mind, since we're violent-oriented race, is to put a gun in your head. If you don't love everybody, I'm just going to shoot you. Well, a lot of good that will do. Then you get you sent to jail if you happen to shoot them, I suppose. So it's all about content, not about form. And I would like to comment a little bit about Paula's experience, and the way it strikes me when I hear Larry talk about her. I don't know this for a fact. These are just my thoughts on it. But my thoughts have to do with this. It has to do with, because of the form that we allow ourselves to be in, she is allowing herself to have a certain form. The form is a form of sickness. But it's still just a form, no matter. What it does, it opens up possibilities of communication to people who are locked into form and can't get out of it, and who do think they're bodies, you see. It opens up possibilities for communication that would otherwise not be there. And you might say, are you saying Paula just wants to be sick so she can help people? Isn't that a little ridiculous? Well, it would be if they're not very sick. But what if they're real sick and fears in their lives all over the place? And it manifests through prejudice, it manifests through inability to get along with other people. It manifests in all kinds of ways, but the fear is there, and that is based on guilt. I'm saying that if this were not a big problem, it would not make any sense, at least to me, for someone to be willing to come here, have a sickness that's not fun, just so you can bring a smile to somebody's face. That sounds too extreme. But what if the sickness is really serious? I feel that the courses say the sickness is serious. The sickness is the sickness of the mind, you know, and that means it's filled with fear and guilt. That's what makes it sick. And it's serious because the whole book that we give our attention to this morning, the Course in Miracles, is said to be a celestial speed up. If it wasn't serious, leave it alone. Don't bother to speed anything up. You know, if a sickness is next to nothing, okay, so I sneezed 4 times more today than yesterday. Nothing, you know. Speed up a cure, don't need a cure. It takes care of itself. Some more complicated than the others. I'm amazed at the effort that went into this. I'm sure that Jesus didn't get all tired out doing that. But if he were in physical form, he would have. If he were in physical form and had to put that all together, he had been writing the thing for 7 years. It took them that long to transcribe it and get it into a book form, you know, or maybe even more. I don't know exactly. But it seems to me like there's a lot of effort going in here, and if there wasn't a big problem, it would not make any sense to put out such a big effort. I mean, if it's not a big problem, hey, everything's fine. You know, if you think everything's working out like it's supposed to, you're not concerned about it. You don't go out and pray for the daisies that they will grow up through the ground. They just grow up. You know, I mean, they do appreciate a little water and stuff, I suppose, but and so you can help them along. I'm just saying that when our reluctance to let go of the fear that is holding our minds is as strong as it is, sometimes some people will say, well, you know, I'm willing to have this particular physical condition so I can communicate in ways that I couldn't communicate otherwise. I felt that I was hearing a little bit of that from you. Is that not true, that you were that Paula is able to make statements? They may be indirect rather than direct. You know, that's another thing about willingness. If you're unwilling to hear something, that means you're unwilling to hear it directly, but you may not be able to help an indirect thing slipped in at the sides, you know. And of course, the most indirect thing is prayer. It's when you, no matter how much a person dislikes you and wouldn't accept a gift you wanted to give him, you can pray for him and he can't refuse it. He doesn't know you're doing it, at least not consciously. So you can do it up one side and down the other. He doesn't know. See, well, we're talking here about a form of helping people that they do know about. That's can be quite effective, you know. And the Course itself says that God needs our bodies for a while to communicate His love to other people through a touch, through a word. And all that has more importance than we realize. And I'm saying that the reason it has more importance because the problem is more serious than we normally figure. I wish I had that quote at hand about what the Course says about our fear. But it does say that if you could lift up the covers that hide it, you would find that it's immense. I mean, it's going to manifest in some people more than others. For example, I remember it's commenting on how strong the fear of God can be. Just think about this just a second. Many people are taught that they are unworthy and God has judged them unworthy. God is the creator of the whole darn thing. If he judged you unworthy, you just needed to go get a pistol and put yourself out of your misery. I mean, it's just pointless to even exist. If the creator of the universe thinks you're nothing and not worthwhile, you aren't. But it doesn't go that way. But you're taught that. So what do you do with that? Well, you shove it off into your mind. You can't look at it full force. See, I'm trying to look at it full force. It's like if two of you said, Bob, you're not worth a darn. Maybe I can shove that off. All 10 of you say that. It's getting a little harder for me to shove that off. I got 4,000 people out here saying that to me. Hey, this is really hard. What if the creator of all 4,000 people, of all 4,000 million planets, and everybody said, you are worthless? Then I'm just going to say, I guess you're right. What else can I say? If you want to argue, he'll say, well, show me, you create some stuff if you think they're so right. I said, well, I can't do that. He says, well, I can. I goofed up with you. You're worthless, you see. So I'm saying that is a huge source of fear, but you don't look at it directly in the same sense you would look at an onrushing car coming right at you. You can't repress or suppress that. It's just right there, and here it comes, right in your face, you might say. And so it's not that way. It's something you can take and kind of push down, but it's there, and it starts informing to some extent or other then what you do. And if you have that kind of fear, then people that look different or act different, you're going to be afraid of. You may be afraid of people that act similarly. Who knows? It's just informing your situation, and it's serious, more so than we think. And of course, some people say, well, I think it's serious because when I look on the news, I just see all kinds of violence and misunderstanding of one group of people or another. Yeah, and that is one of the benefits in a certain sense. You know, we all get tired of looking at all the negativity on the news. Well, at least it's letting us, reminding us that it's there, you know. And it's coming from the mentality of the people that you're seeing on the news. And it's not supposed to be, I say not supposed to be there. It's not God's will that it be there. This world, the Course says, is not God's will. It's our will. It's the ego's will. And so it will not continue forever. The Course is really pretty clear about that. It says the world is born in error. It's just a statement. It's born in error. Now you say, well, then I need to deny the world. Yeah, you do, as a matter of fact. How do I do that? Do I just quit my job and so on and so forth? No, you don't decide anything you do. You ask Spirit what to do. He's not likely to tell you to quit your job, but if he really wanted you to do so, he would, whatever. But that's not something that you should expect. You don't have to expect. You don't have to have the answer. All you have to do is have the willingness to receive the answer. See? And it's such a simple sounding thing. But that unwillingness is like a stubborn rock. When you stub your toe on every time you round a corner, you get that unwillingness. It just amazed me, I guess, when I heard this person in whose company I was say, I hate all Mexicans. What in the world is that? And why do you hold on to that ridiculous stuff anyhow? I didn't say that. Because if you confront that directly, I think it just makes it stronger. If I thought it would take it away, I'd say that in a second. I'd just blast that away. But I don't think that works. It's not been my experience. And so, but it's amazing. It's amazing when the Course says, we're all the same. You guys think you're different? Where did you get that thought? It wasn't God would be saying, it's not from me. I created you all the same is what he would be saying. And you think you're different. Well, you really pay a lot of attention, though. that little body you have and the clothes you wear and all that, don't you? It's nothing, by the way. It's nothing. But God just can't come out and burst through the sky and say, hey, you guys down there, the clothes and body that you're so interested in, they're nothing. Scare us to death, wouldn't it? Well, that's the problem we're trying to get rid of here. So he's not going to do that. He's not going to scare us more because we're attached to the physical body. We're attached to it, to taking care of it. Nothing wrong. I don't mind taking care of the body you got because we do need it, but it's not who you are. It's not what you are. I really love the way the Course deals with the body. You know, religions over the centuries have said there's something wrong with the body here. Sometimes they say that bodies are bad. Sometimes they say bodies are good. It can go either way, you know. Lose yourself in your body. Just go for physical pleasure the whole way, you know. Have orgies every other week. I think we call it now, get drunk and party. Well, it doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want. That's just not what you are, and you will never find what you're seeking in that way. And so the Course doesn't send us into the body, but it doesn't send us out of the body either. So some spiritual approaches would. They would, let's focus on how we can leave the body. Let's meditate for 3 hours a day and see, or 6 hours a day, and see if we can't learn now just to pull up out of the body. And I'm not criticizing that. No doubt some people do that, and with some effectiveness, or maybe lots of effectiveness. I don't know. That's just not what the Course is interested in. It doesn't really mind you're doing that. It just, but it's got another plan for you. It says there's this great big problem of fear in the world, and I need you to help me cure it. But we got to go through willingness somehow, and all those people are unwilling. Gee, that's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? Well, let's take on a form. Maybe an extreme form. Maybe it's a form of sickness. Maybe it's some other form. I don't know. Are you willing to do that? And some people are willing to do that when they come into this plane of existence, to be less than normal, to have less than normal health at some point during their life in order to accomplish something particularly important. And again, it's particularly important only because of the size of the problem. But some people are just unwilling to hear things like this and feel they need to get up and walk out in the middle of a talk. Can you imagine that?
You make a statement.
Talk about it.
The unwilling, it just bubbles up and pushes you out. You have to flee from that which is true.
Oh, we love God.
You just can't help yourself.
I mean, when the opportunity presents
I'm not
itself,
taking this anymore.
you have to take hold of it, you
Had
know.
enough. Thank you.
So I'm going to conclude here by emphasizing the importance of content over form. That's what the Course teaches us. That it's the content that matters. Don't get lost in the form. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Who's going to lead us here?
Well, there you go. There you are.
Are you?
You are. You got the floor. Your turn. You got the floor.
No, I got him.
Yes, the circle.
Y'all gonna stay for the circle?
I think the prodigal sons are
Returning very quickly.
Very
Boy, you did a
quickly.
good job. You guilted them right back.
If you shame people enough, they'll go that way, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
It's right here.
Okay, well, this is
Friday.
Let's close with an idea that we had from the workbook today. I can be affected only by my thoughts. Together, please.
I can be affected only by my thoughts.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Have a great Sunday and a great week. We'll see you again soon.
Go ahead, run out, go ahead.
Don't wait. Oh, okay. Now that you're here.
Nope, didn't show up. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
How are you, Miss Barbara?
Well, I've been better, but I've been worried.
Well, you didn't leave early, Lynn.
Dan's going to lunch today or not.